Hello and welcome once again. In today's video, we're going to be continuing this topic about stress in teenagers. And now we're going to be answering the question is, do teenagers see school stress as a health risk? That's what we'll be covering in today's video. All right, so in this video, we want to be finding out what the teens are actually saying themselves about what's stressing them out, what is stressing them out, as well as the impact that stress is having on them. And that impact would include social relationships and their own self-identity. And what about awareness? Are they becoming more aware? Are they understanding the levels of stress? Well, all of those things will be going into this video, so stay tuned. One of the things that's become uh, a thing in public schools is this idea that we're giving too much work. Students are feeling overwhelmed by the amount of academic work that they have. This is what they are reporting. They're feeling overwhelming stress by the amount of schoolwork that they have. So when they are reporting it, the solution becomes let's not give them as much. Now, I don't want to necessarily say that that is wrong to think that, but the question really comes understanding what's going on with teenagers and the result of all this work. Because guess what? I've been around, I know talking to teachers when I first got into the education realm, the stories I've heard about, growing up on a farm and the work they had to do, trying to get the good grades, doing all the sports, long bus rides home, particularly in rural communities, and doing it all over again the next day. We were busy all the time, worked hard, stressed, but there were some things that were different in that culture, that time, the lifestyle that's different today, that seems to enable those past generations to handle the stress in somewhat different ways. Now, we don't have a lot of data necessarily in those past times. So what we can talk about is these present times. And certainly, they still have sports. They still have all these clubs and activities they want to do, and they have schoolwork. And trying to balance all that out, students feel tremendous stress. Just automatically trying to give them less isn't necessarily the most proper solution, especially if we haven't tried helping them learn how to deal with how they're feeling about stress and how to manage their time better. So those are things that we absolutely should be looking at and considering. In other videos, we've talked about the impact stress has on the body. There's long-term negative consequences for holding on to stress. When you're in the emotion of stress, that changes the biochemical nature. It can weaken the immune system. It disrupts sleep. All of these things have impact on how healthy you are, right? How sick you are, how often you catch colds, allergies, even digestion, right? All these sort of things become physical symptoms of stress that you can be experiencing. Your your gut biome, all those bacteria and stuff that are positively functioning in your gut begin to shift when you're under stress and can lead to, again, physical symptoms of sickness, illness, sleepiness, tiredness, crankiness, emotional regulation, all those things with long-term impacts, including things like potential cancer, heart disease, etc., etc. Injuries are something that's often overlooked. So let me tell you a little bit about an old study that I kind of did, more not to illustrate hard data, but more like, I wonder if. So there was a study done that showed that college athletes who were experiencing anxiety and stress were 2.1 times more likely to get injured. I wonder that kind of makes sense. If you're feeling stress and you're carrying that in your body, you tend to be stiffer. You tend to not move quite as fluidly. You're an athlete, can understand how that could cause an injury. If you're feeling stressed, you're carrying in you move a little stiffer, etc. So I looked at the first round draft picks for over a 10-year period of time for Major League Baseball and found out that, now again, these are elite athletes that are being drafted in the first round with the money that goes with that because of their athleticism. But only 60% of pitchers and 70% of hitters, or don't remember the data right off the top of my head, actually made it to the big league. And those who did, on average, only lasted around 6 full-time years. And their statistics were about average. And some of the reasons for some of those were injuries. So you begin to wonder about how all this begins to play in with injuries, sickness, illness, etc., by people who carry the stress and stay in the emotion of the stress without good ways to release that. So teenagers are feeling a lot of pressure academically. That's where most of the pressure comes from. Pew Research Center showed that 61% of teenagers feel high levels of pressure to achieve good grades. So how's this impacting their identity? Well, part of that is going to go back to mindset, right? The whole mental side of this is a large part, what do they think of themselves in terms of their ability to deal with pressure, to stress, to do well academically, to not disappoint? Because some of that academic pressure is like, you don't want to disappoint your parents, you don't want to disappoint your teachers, you don't want to disappoint people. That's a mindset related thing. What do you believe about yourself as a student, about what you need to do well in life, right? These beliefs about the importance of grades make a difference. I wanted to get good grades because I was competitive. A friend of mine didn't really care that much about grades, and he's an incredibly successful scientist, highly successful scientist. But he even failed in college organic chemistry twice. He didn't stress out over his grades. All right. So that identity is going to work both ways. Awareness of the problem is a huge step in beginning to correct it. And we are becoming more aware. All of us, societally, are becoming more aware. There are more and more people willing to talk about it. This idea of stress, and not just school-related academic stress, stress outside of that. Certainly, when you're hearing within the school culture and having programs, oftentimes through school guidance counseling programs, where they begin to talk about stress, and they're trying to get social workers involved more and communicating if you're having any issues with this, you don't feel good about how you're feeling about yourself, having counseling groups, and all this makes awareness that much more obvious. So teenagers are becoming more aware of this. It's out there more. It's being talked about more, and all that's a good thing. That in of itself isn't necessarily enough, but it can do wonders to how teenagers begin to perceive stress and their reaction to it. Again, mindset is all about this. So shifting mindset, shifting culture, several areas that we have to help teenagers in order to understand how to handle this stress. The whole self-identity thing is enormous. Trying to find out what those beliefs are about how they view stress, how they view academic performance and athletic performance and their relationships and fitting in, all those things that go in to make up their identity, they need to become aware of that. And then where we find there are sets of beliefs that, yeah, geez, that I don't know if that's such a good belief to be holding on to. It doesn't seem to be, supporting your ability to deal with stress well and to perform at your best and all that. There are ways that we can help them eliminate that and build some more positive ones. This is all part of that whole mindset training that is missing in education, but it's foundational. Then there's skills to deal with stress. There's mindfulness training, breathing, breath work they can do. One of the things I implemented with my classes was some couple minutes of breath work, beginning of class, to help center them, calm them. And they used to joke, oh, do we have to do that again? But guess what? Once we started it, quiet, they sat there, and it helped get them grounded. It's made a huge impact academically, socially, behaviorally, and all those areas. We come to the end of another video, an important topic again, because teenagers do feel stress around school. So trying to figure out what to do about it, the source of that, why that happens, that was something we really need to cover. And I encourage you to subscribe to my channel, check out the other videos. In particular, you might want to check out the video, Do Teenagers Do Drugs Because of Stress? Check that video out and come back and watch another.